Hey guys, it's your course director Emily Ray here. Just wanted to give you a little positive, productive feedback on these text-based resumes that you guys submitted on Sunday. So a couple of things to start. First, what you're going to need to do as you continue in the program and as you're working on this resume throughout your time here is to look for a connection and make sure that you're establishing one between your skills and experiences, and then the types of jobs that you want to do in the media communications industry. For example, if you want to be a video editor, you need to show video editing experience on your resume. And if in that process you identify a gap, meaning that you don't have the experience to show that you can do video editing, ask yourself, how can I get that experience? Is it an internship? Is it volunteer work? Is it creating, personal portfolio projects, passion projects of my own? Identifying and following through with those ways. In addition to talking about your responsibility at a job or in a position, I want you to think about your achievements or your accomplishments in that role, not just what you were tasked with doing, because certainly you're going to be graduating with a lot of people who have similar skill sets to you. So what is it that's going to set you apart as the ideal candidate? And then last but not least, make sure that you're spell checking your resume as you're continuing to evolve it. Use the in-application features, but also human eyes, a trusted editor, someone who can help you catch misused words, not just misspelled words. I've had many students talk about their great customer service experience, except they've spelled it costumer. And that could be something that could potentially get your resume, put into a different pile than the one that you want it to be put into. Wendy Walzer is the MCBS Career Development Advisor, and she will be very present in your lives as you get closer to graduation, but she's a resource to you even now. So if you want to reach out, her email address is here on screen. So first up, we're going to take a look at Anthony's. I'm going to poke through these just sort of one by one and comment on a few of the things that I see. The assignment itself was just to come up with the text that would be on your resume and to not spend a lot of time designing it at this point. Many of you haven't had a lot of design courses yet, and your skills are still evolving in that area. I wanted you to be focusing on content here. I'm going to note some things if I see them, but not spend a lot of time critiquing design elements. I'm looking at the way that this information is being relayed here on the page, and I see objective as the first thing here. And this is a great sort of summary paragraph of what it is that you're into creating. Thinking about how you might design and position this information on a resume, like the actual order of it. I think that your experience is going to help, hold the most weight. That shows that other people in the past have hired you to do that kind of work. So when you're thinking about how you might organize this, make sure that your experience isn't pushed all the way down to the last thing on the page, because that's certainly going to be very important. We've got some of your qualifications here. We see you have intermediate knowledge of some of these Creative Cloud applications. What I appreciate about how you've listed this is that you say intermediate knowledge, that you give a qualification of that, meaning that you just don't say, I know After Effects. You give me an idea as the depth of that skill set, and that's valuable. And that you've also, didn't just put Adobe Creative Cloud, but rather these individual programs, which is what's going to be necessary on a resume to make sure that it aligns with the actual job description or job posting that you're applying for. It says here that you have some video production experience, you've done a media internship. I want you to notice how you've come up with at least 4 bullet points for what you did in this media internship. I'd like to challenge you to come up with 4 more for each of these. Certainly, what you did in these roles was dynamic enough that you could come up with several, different things that you did to show, everything that you're bringing to the table. Kind of scrolling down, we've got your full sail education there, community involvement. Something to be thinking about moving forward is that, so you have community involvement here, but don't really describe what that is. What are you doing there? What value are you bringing? What role are you playing? And as you continue to develop your media content creation skills, you'll add your portfolio here, and your portfolio will be sort of a more in-depth look at your intermediate knowledge of After Effects and Premiere and Photoshop. But nice work and great start with this, Anthony. So next up, we're going to take a look at Megan. So definitely heavily styled to start out here. Like, it looks really great. I appreciate the visual. This part looks a little cramped, meaning that not a lot of breathing room between these elements, and also curious as to why the role is listed here and then the date, but it's flip-flopped in a couple of places, and that there's not actually no space here. When you are designing, make sure that you're designing with consistency. So you've got experience in photography and videography, in English, in serving, and in laboring. So kind of a pretty broad spectrum here. It seems that you're an effective communicator, interpersonal relationships, which is great, and that's pretty broad. Be thinking about how you want to use your media communications degree and start to try and amass more experience in the realm or in the direction that you want to go to. This is a pretty mixed bag, which is totally fine. It just shows that you're very employable in a lot of different places, but thinking about the idea of like tailoring some of this. So you've used a lot of space here to talk about this degree program. I would think that this is not necessarily, they can look up like what the degree program is. Your GPA is not going to be relevant when you get out. Maybe instead of detailing what we see here, you could apply a little bit more information or even just spacing up in this area. I think that your proficiency in Adobe applications is important, but you need to list out the specific applications. Kind of scrolling down here, I don't see those applications listed, so your tech skills are going to be important. So be sure to note, like with specificness, which application you use and like what does it mean to be proficient. Make sure that you're also including a link to a portfolio site on this resume so people can actually see the depth of your skill set. Here we have Crystal, so we have a really nice clean layout here, quite a bit of a work history, right? So in your professional skills, I can see that you've done quite a bit in a number of different areas, so pretty advanced in a lot of these spaces. You got your hobbies and interests. So yeah, we're kind of going back in time, and looks like you've got quite a bit of experience in customer service and in sort of managing the needs of a target audience, consumer base, which is great. Quite a bit of work history there. So you're a customer service professional, strong leadership and relationship, great written and verbal, and that's all pretty apparent from how well that your resume is written here. My question to you at this point in time is, what is the objective of your media communications degree, and how do you want to use this, and how can you tailor the language or the experience that you have or that you need to get in order to get the kind of jobs that you want. And maybe it's just more, maybe using media communication skills in your customer service role, but kind of making that clear in whatever your objective statement is. So here we have Stephanie's. So Stephanie, you definitely want your name front and center with your contact information. Not a lot of, so as I'm kind of scrolling through this, it just seems kind of, there's no headings or sort of section separators. So I want you to be thinking about, even when you just have simple text space, that if you were to bump up experience by a few font sizes or make it bold, that I could more easily scan this information. That's a user experience consideration. As your instructor, I need it to kind of review this, but think about it from a hiring manager's perspective. They're going through potentially 250 applications or 250 resumes for any one given job, and statistics show that they spend about 6 to 7 seconds on each resume. So, for all of you, that's going to be important, making sure that your resume is, very easily scanned by the eye to jump around from section to section, and that the information is, laid out in a visually, pleasing format. So here we've got sort of your objective statement. So assistant, brand marketing specialist, 10 years in clerical, project management, customer service, social media. So that's a mixed bag too, meaning that like there's a lot of different things there. So, very curious as to what your objectives are with media communications, right? So here it says you're an independent contractor doing brand management, operating in freelance, providing admit. So this is the part that is a little bit curious, right? So we have, your virtual assistant, marketing specialist, brand management. But then you talk about clerical work, right? So that's a disconnect. I want to hear more about how what does this have to do with marketing, per se? So here we have a little bit like events coordination, web design. Just the language, like you've got so many like responsibilities and things that you do, but the way that this is framed doesn't paint a clear picture of what you're doing. So maybe like a one sentence like explanation, like you're working, for so and so, and these are the things, that you're doing, because obviously you've got a lot on your plate. So here we have executive assistant, marketing director, executive assistant to the marketing director. Curious about that. Or are you saying that you are an executive assistant and a marketing director? So that part is a little confusing. Here you use bullet points, which are really great for scanning and like very quickly absorbing this information. Here you do it more in a paragraph format. I would encourage the former, so keeping up with these bullets, for each kind of one of these main roles and responsibilities. Kind of scrolling down, just looking at your work history, which is very detailed. You've got language, and here you've got your coursework, which is great. So and then you've got your references available on request. Okay, so you absolutely completed this assignment as requested, which was to compile a bunch of text about your skills and experiences. My recommendation for you would be to spend a little bit more time on the articulation aspect of making it clear what were you doing in these roles, and then coming up with sort of a consistent format for, you list the company, your position, the date range, maybe a 1 or 2 sentence explanation of that role, and then these responsibilities included, and come up with a very clear format that you can replicate for each position that you've been in. At this time, I'm not really sure like what it is that you want to do or what you want to get into, and so I can't provide much more insight beyond that. But for you just to ask yourself the question, what I want to do with my media communications degree, and how can I tease out my skills and experience at all of these jobs to showcase that like I have skills in that area. All right, here we have Ralph. So kind of scrolling down, just like a very clean text-based resume here. So you've got an executive profile, and you've bolded certain words here. So our eyes kind of jump to like dynamic, drive, creative, increase, motivation. So that's one way to kind of thematically help us understand who you are. You've got skills and expertise. So do coaching and training with sales, provide guidance to company policies, solve issues. And who is this for would be my question, right? Like, so this all seems like pretty summary, right? But like, what did you do for which one of these places here, right? So you've got a work history, but like what did you do at Comcast? What did you do at Xerox? So, just more or less not giving us just like a full summary, but kind of detailing in each one of these spaces here. You have, a lot of education and some really cool like 7 habits training, which is awesome. Certainly find a lot of value in that myself. Ralph, this is a really full, very full profile of you and kind of what you can bring to a company. My question, as it was, for the last one we reviewed, is what do you want to do with your media communications degree, and how can you craft language around that to show your skills and ability in that area? That is really going to be the work for you moving forward. Next up, we have Carlene. So you want to be a media designer. and you're at Full Sail, which is great, and you've got a degree, and you've created presentations and social networks and logos. Exceeded business for upcoming food companies, exceeded business organization with online websites. Not really sure what kind of like the languaging of that, not sure what you mean. Seeking some more clarity there. Who did you do it for? What were the exact projects? That sort of thing. Looking at your skills and certifications. You're saying you can use Adobe Creative Cloud programs, but like which one? Because there's a lot. You need to list those specific programs on your resume because it needs to match up and align with whatever was required in the job description. So if you want to be a media designer, you most likely will need Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, or some combination of those. So your resume will need to reflect that in terms of skills. But then your portfolio site will back that up to show, look at all these projects that I've made, using those technical programs. Alrighty, so last but not least, we have Michael. And so you want to gain knowledge working as an intern, right? The bullets here are kind of like pretty bold, and they kind of, I would maybe put a space, between the bullet and the text, maybe make that bullet a bit smaller. It seems kind of overwhelming, and maybe even distracting, right? Like it's an element that's drawing my eye, but like not an important element. As far as education goes, if you have collegiate experience, which you do, you don't need to share your high school. Unless, which kind of, you do note here that you took graphic design, HTML, and computer repair. So that's kind of, that's actually kind of applicable, because these are skill sets that support, what you're doing at Full Sail. So we might need to talk about that more as to like what your intent is in sharing that. I mean, like, do you feel that, just mentioning your bachelor's degree alone will be enough to kind of support your skills and abilities in these areas? Certainly, I think that if, by the end of your course of study, if you just put your media communications bachelor's, like that includes graphic design and HTML and some of those things as well, so you can go ahead and take that off. So here we have, just different jobs where you've worked. The formatting's kind of off, like the way that these jump around, but like I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that. You'll have an opportunity, a lot of opportunities to work on this moving forward, specifically with design related things. Here, I really want you guys to be thinking about what have I done and how can I showcase my skills and abilities in media, that will help me get the kind of job that I want. And if I don't have those experiences, how can I create them? And so here, you worked at Perry's Cave, cashier, tour guide. Here, you were a busboy. So neither one of these things is really related at all to media. So, was there anything in these roles that had anything to do with that? Question mark. And if not, what can you do between now and the next time that you're graduating, or not graduating, between now and maybe the next portfolio, to gain some experience in something that feels valuable to you? Here you did the Boy Scouts of America. Now that's a cool organization, and one where potentially you could have some experiences that lend themselves to being marketable among any number of different industries or careers. So like, tell me more about this for sure. If you guys have any questions about the feedback that's been provided here, and ultimately the expectation that you will continue to revise this language, to articulate your skills and abilities in a way that aligns with the types of jobs that you're trying to get, and to also talk about your achievements. Remember that your portfolio website is a sister piece to this, meaning that your resume, you're telling them that you can be creative or use Adobe Photoshop. Your portfolio is where you're going to show them those things. And so I hope that you see the connection between the two and how they each need to support each other. If you guys have questions, let me know. And I look forward to continuing to support you in portfolio.